And don't forget, our favourite listeners are the ones who subscribe to our Patreon, who get all the best outtakes, who get all the funniest extra bits, and all the things that if they were in any way good enough, we would have included in the podcast in the first place.
We're just warts and all, aren't we?
What's warts and all?
We just leave all the crap.
Okay. 100% unfiltered.
Yes.
Like a cheap beer.
Yeah.
Actually, no, the unfiltered ones now are the more expensive ones. I don't know how that's come to pass.
I was going to say something really bad there.
Oh, go on. No, if there's...
Sound like an unvaccinated child.
Like... Thanks very much. Right, yeah.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Albumble.
We don't have a Patreon.
No, we don't have
right.
a Patreon.
It's fine.
Albumble is where we review albums we didn't view the first time round.
Yeah.
I'm Anne.
And I'm not.
And the boy isn't here because he's at school.
Yes. So if you've endured all three of the Junior Eurovision podcasts...
Sorry.
Well done.
Yeah.
I think that deserves some sort of...
That we should be giving them a Patreon, shouldn't we?
Yes, yeah. A Patreon for stress and trauma caused. Right.
Well, yes. Yeah.
So, do we go over to the news desk first?
The news desk. Well, I have to say there is very little in terms of news in the news desk, unless you've got anything in particular that any of our previous albumblers...
Hold on, you're asking me to remember about 10 different artists now. Really, if we were a bit more professional, we'd prepare this, wouldn't we?
I mean, it's not quite on brand, but just to remind everybody that in a few days' time, I think in about a week's time, the voting for the ESC 250 starts.
Right.
So
Hashtag Justice for Leon?
And Joost.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
That's pretty much a foregone, isn't it?
If he doesn't win, then Russian bots have been at it again.
Or ones from a bit further south.
Yes.
Or Spanish ones.
Ones.
Yeah. Anyway, let's not get into politics.
No, let's not. No, there's not really much in the news desk.
Okay, so vote in the ESC 250.
Yes.
And vote wisely.
Yes. Vote for who you actually like.
Vote for me. I've got attitude.
If you know that reference,
then get out more.
We have had some a post.
Oh.
So we had a lovely message from Ariana on Blue Sky.
Hello, Ariana.
Saying how
You're
lovely.
Our favourite.
They're all our favourites, aren't they? Especially her.
You mean there are others?
I think so.
Okay.
I mean, we do get we don't get billions of downloads, but we get enough.
Just a few 100,000.
And it can't be the same person downloading it 26 times.
Well, it could be.
I suppose it could be.
Perhaps it's somebody with a very ropey internet connection.
Maybe.
And it keeps stopping and restarting, and each time it restarts, it counts it as another download.
Maybe. So, yes, reach out to us on Blue Sky or...
Reach out and text us.
Reach out and... What do they post us? What are they called? Because obviously they used to be tweets.
Skeet.
Skeet.
Yeah.
It sounds like something rude.
It doesn't sound good, does it?
So
send us a message on Bumble, OnlyFans.
Oh God, not that. We are not on OnlyFans. And that's a very different type of podcast.
Well, you're not on OnlyFans anyway.
Excuse me. Yes. Right. Shall we get on? So, can you remind us what we're reviewing today?
We're reviewing an album.
Yes. Called...
Oh, that album is 1995, 96's? 95, I think. Touché by the German dance act Interactive.
Okay.
Which, at the time this album was put together, was primarily Ramon Zenker, with Mark Innocent, who's better known as Marcus Geutner, I think, yeah. Okay. Who was the main vocalist. Andreas Schneider and Jens Lissat were both involved in that as well.
Yeah.
Now, to give you an idea of the people we're dealing with here, Ramon Zenker was part of, or was a major part of Fragma, of Bellini, of Megalomania, and of Perplexer, and loads of other acts from that era and doing that sort of genre of music. Jens Lissat was part of Offshore, who had a hit in the late 80s in the UK with "I Can Take the Power." Do 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 do. And Andreas Schneider went on to found the German Dos or Die record label, which is a well-respected dance and techno label, which is still going successfully to this day. So it's sort of a supergroup before they were aware that they were a supergroup. But certainly a tremendous collection of
it's like they were a supergroup in the womb.
Yeah.
And then when they were born,
a nascent supergroup.
Yeah, yes.
There we go.
That's better.
Excuse me.
So what music is this?
So this is, it's distinctly German. Some people will refer to it as rave, as happy hardcore, as techno, as dance music. I'm not sure that the German scene ever fitted in particularly to one of those scenes.
Yeah.
If I'm going to be really pretentious about it, I'd say it possibly to me says it's post-rave.
Okay.
Because it has a lot of the same energy and a lot of the same tropes that the rave had, but was altogether a lot better put together and well executed.
Okay.
There was a lot of this sort of thing going on in Germany in the late 90s, a lot of which made it to the UK on rave tapes from...
mixtapes.
Yeah, you know the things that you used to see packs of 6 tapes in the record shop behind the counter.
Yes.
With names from some of the UK's big raves on them. The vast majority of those DJs would have songs from this scene and tracks from this scene in their set and would pass it off as their own, basically. This was officially is their second album, although their first is more or less just a cobbled together collection of singles that was released by the German, I think they're German, they might be Swiss, German label Zix, who were there was an awful lot of stuff that didn't get released on Zix in the UK, but people like Corona and Wigfield and Two Unlimited and Capella, all of their stuff across particularly Germany, Austria and Switzerland, and some of it a bit further afield, was released on Zix. While they were releasing this album and material from it, Zix were doing their usual trick of trying to make a few quid re-releasing old material at the same time just to confuse things. The artwork for this album I think is fantastic. Intercord, the label that they'd signed to, made a real effort with making this album and the singles that came from it look part of a complete work. They made a bit of a change. To start off with, they were... Originally, they started in 1990, or I think their first release came out in 1990, and they had a sound that a lot of people lumped in with the Belgian new beat sound.
Yeah.
And then it went quite ravey, it went quite techno-y, and this is probably the poppier end of it, this album, when they released it. So there's been a definite change of sound. Unusually for a dance act, normally with a dance act, you can tell they're struggling to fill an album with material.
Yeah.
With this one, the singles that came off this album, I think I worked out there are a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's 7 more tracks from this era were released as B-sides and bonus tracks with the singles, and a lot of them are really good. There is a spiritual final single from this album which is not on it, which is a cover of The Sun Always Shines on TV by a-ha. If you listen to this album, you will understand what that track sounds like without needing to go and listen to it. Different vocalist on that one. Is a vocalist, I think he's called Toby Lee Cooper is his stage name, and Tobias Lutzenkirchen, Lutzenkirchen I think is his German name. But much the same sort of thing as this album is. I don't know if you've got anything you want to add before we kick off, because I realise I've been gabbling away for about 20 minutes.
It's okay, and I need a wee in a minute, so we can stop in a sec. But I will say it's quite interesting what you said, because I didn't 100% know they were German.
Right.
However, through listening to the album, it certainly didn't sound Italian, like the Italo disco thing, which was quite big in the UK.
Yeah.
But also, it didn't sound Beneluxy.
No.
It didn't sound Belgian or Technotronic-y or Too Unlimited.
No.
It's not like that. It was. I was struggling where to put it.
I think it's fair to say that by the mid-90s, the scene in Belgium had quietened down quite a bit.
Yeah.
There wasn't as much stuff coming out as Belgium as there had been in the early 90s. Because a lot of that just got imported straight to the UK and was became quite popular. But
I do think that the quote-unquote dance scene of the 90s, if you ask people, what do you remember of the night, they will automatically go with, No Limits by...
Yeah.
And this is not this, is it?
No, I don't think it is.
It's not what most people would think of as a dance album. It's much more lyrical, almost.
Yeah.
And much more... not instrumental, I don't mean that. There's more...
There is a lot going on.
There's a lot of production. There's a lot of... if you think about it like an orchestra, you can see where different bits fit in. It's not just a beat.
Yeah.
So, I will also say, I found this album rather hard to describe because there were a lot of things going on I didn't have the words for.
That's all right, that's fine.
And also because a lot of it is instrumental.
Yeah.
Trying to remember what an instrumental sounds like is quite tricky. So there might be bits where I go, say very little, because I haven't got the words, but you might be able to fill in some gaps.
Not a problem.
Right.
Okay, shall we have a look through it track by track?
Let's have a go at listening, talking about it from start to finish.
So the album opens with, I think, my favourite name for an introductory track, which is Introactive.
Yes.
So I just shut the door there because I can feel a breeze coming through at my back.
Yes. So it kind of... I suppose it doesn't really set the tone because the rest of it isn't quite like this.
The intro and the outro have their own sounds to them, don't they? Yeah.
It's kind of like two slices of bread.
Yeah.
And all the other songs are the filling, which are not the bread.
No.
But does have its own distinct sound.
Yes.
Distinct quality. Quite spooky, which was quite nice listening to this around Halloween.
Yeah.
Kind of gave it that kind of nights drawing in.
Yes.
Kind of quality. What have you got?
This album as a whole does have quite a lot of end of summer feel about it, I find.
Yes.
It's perhaps that's not something I've thought about in the past. So I think this has echoes. So a lot of dance albums in this era were doing intro tracks at the start of their albums. So Serenity and Horizon by Culture Beat have an intro. To the Maximum by Max has an intro at the start of it. I really like this because they've made a lot of effort with this.
Yeah.
This is, if you ignore the fact it's an intro and it's setting the scene for something, it's also been put together really nicely. There are echoes right at the start of... Now, I apologise for how obscure this reference is. There's a Chapel Library album, which is Nigel Bates' Electronic, which there's a CFAX tape called Stradivarius.
Yes.
Which uses every track on the album apart from this intro track, which is called In the Beginning. Mm-hmm. And the first bit of this, just thought, oh, this is an update of that.
Okay.
It's that sort of... something evolving from the primordial soup into becoming something new. Yes, so
Yeah.
that's track 2. Now, bear with me here.
Okay.
Is the third single from the album, Living Without Your Love.
So this starts off in a kind of harmonic way.
Yeah.
And then goes into the ba-da-da-da. There's that song, isn't it?
Yeah.
But which is nice. And then has this, what I can only describe as a slidey synth. Like a car alarm.
It's sirens, yeah.
But it all kind of intertwines and has their place nicely.
Yeah.
Without being too busy.
Yes.
This style of music is quite busy.
Yeah.
But you have to be careful that it's not too busy, because then it just becomes noise.
Yeah.
So yes, it. So
this is the first single of theirs that really got me thinking, oh, this is something I'm very much into. That ferocious siren line that sort of runs through the sort of the rave half of it, because a lot of the songs on this album are sort of set up with a rave section as opposed to a verse, and then a vocal part, which is the chorus, effectively. I just think that siren soundtrack to it is absolutely immense.
Yeah.
It's just such a big sound. Marcus's vocals, I think, sound like they should have been on dozens of
not
dance
our Marcus.
No,
this isn't our Marcus.
No, the vocalist on this. Interestingly, he's done very little else as a vocalist since then. He's got a few production credits on things, I think writing credits, but very little in the way. I think there's about 2 other singles after he stopped working with Ramon Zenker and Interactive after this. And yeah, I really like the fact it feels... This is something I'll probably come back to again and again. It feels like there's actually been an attempt to write something quite emotive in this, rather than just singing words in the middle for the sake of it.
I think that's why I said earlier about the fact that this didn't fit into... Because when people often think of 90s dance music, they think of that repetitive, like No Limits, or I guess stuff like scooter stuff, like hyper, and things like things that are more chanty rather than an actual song.
Yeah,
these do feel like songs, even though some of them have only got a little bit of vocal in them. Yeah, they are definitely towards the song rather than a piece of music.
I must admit, it's not something I'd particularly considered before, that dance music after about 94 in the UK seems to move away from having fully constructed songs into just having a chorus and perhaps just one hook line that's just repeated over and over.
Which is what happens nowadays.
Well, yeah,
you just need a word, and then
sort of,
the rest is babble.
It started... You see, I think this started about 10 years ago in the UK, because it got to the point where you'd hear sort of an interesting line in a song, and you think, oh, that's quite clever. But then that would be all they'd written, so they just keep repeating that over and over again. The first one was Attracting Flies, which I think was by Aluna George.
Who is this man-woman thing?
Them. It's a duo, I believe.
Oh, okay.
But yeah... But there was there was one line in that you think, oh, that's actually quite clever. But then they just repeat that over and over again. You think,
that's not clever.
What? That's less clever. Because I think these sort of touchstones in a song are something that you miss if they're just repeated over and over. Yes, so that's probably... The version on the album is almost identical to the single version. I will also be making mention of this with the singles as well, because... there are differences.
Oh, okay. Right.
Track 3 is Set Me Free.
Set Me Free. So, this has a interesting... I've called it a descending start.
Right, yeah.
Where it obviously kind of moves down the scale kind of thing. With a bit of a spoken intro. Is that one? No.
Yeah, I think
There's
so.
like a bit of spoken, and then it goes into the main body. I found this one, after the first two songs, a little bit samey.
Yeah.
A little bit, not necessarily flat, because there's always a lot to listen to.
Yes.
But this didn't quite have the dynamism. Yes.
Yeah. I'd say it feels like one of the thinner tracks on the album to me. Perhaps not quite as much went into it. Still perfectly listenable, and considering some of the filler that I have heard on dance music albums, I'd say perfectly acceptable.
Yeah.
Track 4 was single number 4, which is Tell Me When.
Tell me when.
Will I see you again? No,
it's not that one.
Ba-da-da-dum,
Yeah,
ba-da-da-dum.
more bars.
Yeah. You don't mess with a winning format.
I did, when I heard this a couple of times, I was thinking, is this the same song?
Yeah.
No. This one I've written is Pachelbel's Canon-esque.
Oh, right, okay.
The kind of do.
Yes,
whatever it
I know
goes.
the synth line you mean.
I did think that was, an interesting way into it.
Yeah.
And then obviously we've got it is basically the same thing over and over again, but the music in the background does the driving.
Yes.
Doesn't it? As most of these songs seem to do.
So the album version is quite long compared to the single version. It's much more stretched out.
Yeah.
It's not quite as punchy as the single version is.
Yeah. I think they've fleshed it out a bit, haven't they?
Yeah. I made a comparison here to The Grid, because when The Grid released their album Evolver, which I think might have been the year before, there were, I'd say, about 4 tracks on there that very clearly were built from a similar construction set.
Yeah.
So they put it together in a certain way. And as with Living Without Your Love, you hear that with this song as well. This was the single that came out after Living Without Your Love. I think it's absolutely superb. Yeah. I'm very much here for it. And also has Sense of Eternity as the B-side on this, which is superb. A fully instrumental track, but absolutely brilliantly put together. Track 5, which was the 5th single, now I think that'll be a surprise, is We Are One. The single version, I'll tell you before we start, was very heavily overhauled, and basically this is a set of foundations on which the single version was built. But yeah, this feels quite as though it's going to go somewhere that it never quite gets to.
Yeah, I've said it's kind of a pulsating kind of start.
Yeah.
And almost comes in one instrument at a time. It's like layers up. Yeah. Although some of those layers are very thin, it's just like an extra beat. Yeah. Or an extra beat, an extra note here and there. And then you've got the never-ending sample of We Are One, We Are One, We Are One. Almost like a kind of chant.
Yes. Yeah.
And then I wish it had exited the way it entered. Which was to have kind of, as it came in one bit at a time. Yeah. They could have fleshed it out better by spending a bit more time exiting the same way.
Okay. Obviously I'm far more familiar with the single version of this. Yeah. Which I think you probably are as well, because you've heard that. I'm sure you'll have heard that at some point. This feels sort of quite like more like an underscore to what they were planning to build. But
okay.
Track 6 is Hearts in Harmony. Now, this, along with Living Without Your Love and Tell Me When, is the third of 3 songs on the album that have Andreas Schneider as a writing credit.
Okay.
And I think, interestingly, his songs are possibly the ones that fit the formula the best on this. So whether it was the case of he came up with this structure of how we wanted to put the songs together, and they're built around that. This was never released as a single, but I really like Mark's vocals on this. I think they've got a lovely earnestness about them, and an eagerness. So yeah.
Yeah. I've said that it's got a fuzzy start.
Yeah.
With twiddly bits.
Twiddly bits?
Yes, there's lots of...
Is that a technical term?
That's what I've come up with.
Okay.
As twiddly bits with more repetitive lyrics again. But it's a very long part.
Yes,
It's not just one sentence.
Yeah.
It is just like one verse or one sentence. Well, not one sentence, but one chunk.
Yeah.
That's repeated over and over. Well, not over.
And the vocals actually come in quite late on this.
They do.
Come in, I think it's more
up.
than halfway through the song. Yes, that ends on the cassette, side 1 of the album.
Oh, nice.
Was released on cassette, so we'll...
oh, that's interesting then. Okay.
Oh, go on.
No, it's okay.
Because I think it works quite well as a sign off for part 1. Side 2 on the cassette. Why am I saying that? Because nobody's going to be listening to this.
Kids know what cassettes are these days.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I blame Paloma Faith for that and other young people's music. I don't know where that came from. So track 7 is When the Wind Blows. Don't know if they've been reading the Raymond Briggs book.
I hope not.
But seems possibly quite unlikely. Most dance albums of this era, which seem to have some intention of being crossover success, had a ballad or a mid-tempo song.
Yeah.
And I think this is probably the closest we get to it. Normally with those songs, they will be released as the third single from the album. This wasn't a single. I think possibly the album version's about 1.5 minutes too long, as it doesn't go a great deal further in the later stages of the song.
Okay.
But what do you think?
Well, the reason I went okay was because this makes a little bit of sense, because I quite liked the beginning of this song.
Right.
Because there were lots of random sounds. Something I've written down here, something that sounds like an electronic didgeridoo.
Oh, right, okay.
It just sounds, it's something that would, when you're turning over, would prick up your ears as a good start to side B of something. I've written that this is slightly boy bandish. I could imagine, a boy band of the 90s singing something like this. Yeah. A slightly slower pace, which is more about the lyrics than it is the music.
Yes, I think that's fair to say.
I've also said it's a very long song, but not uncomfortable.
Okay.
And that there were some very large synthy gaps between the verses and the choruses. Yes. They didn't run into each other. No. And you're going to like this, because I didn't know... it's not what I mean, but I don't know what else to say. I've put, with a question mark, mesh. Oh, right, okay. As in the band
As
Mesh?
in the band
from
right,
Keynsham.
Okay, yeah.
It sounds something like... They wouldn't do this, but it's...
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Something of the quality.
It's synth pop, is the word you're... Because there is a very... They had a phrase for it over in Germany, which I didn't see used widely, but there was a phrase used as dark wave. Yes. Which was the mid to late 90s originated synth pop groups. So people like Mesh, Apoptygma Berserk, and I'm trying to think, Wolfsheim would obviously be in that as well, which were sort of continuing on the more lyrical art school sort of Depeche Mode side of things, rather than being a all-out electronic act. I can hear that in there. So we go on to track 8, which was the second single, which was Forever Young, which is why I chose this album.
I mean, I can kind of see why they released this as a single, because it's like, we know that song, we'll buy that song as a single. Obviously, this cover of it, or I say cover loosely, is very much centred on the chorus
and the melody,
and but not singing melody.
No,
the melody is there, but is interpreted differently.
Yes,
whilst the vocal part, which is slightly sped up, or at least
I think it's because it's got more pace to it than obviously the original did.
It is kind of like, and then you have like the whippy up parts, the kind of rave,
the rave section,
and then going back to the earworm of the known chorus.
Obviously, this is the album version of this, which is a little bit longer than the single version. It was released in the UK and it did make the top 40. It was released 18 months too late. Because by this time, everybody who had an interest in it already had it on import, including myself. And interestingly, I didn't know that they did the same trick when it was re-released in, I think it was 2003. It got a re-release in Germany in 2003 with a whole new set of remixes to it.
Why? Just because?
Oh, because new remixes about.
Right, okay.
Got re-released then, but the UK version didn't get re-released until 2005.
Oh.
So, and that was then released on all around the world, which I didn't actually know. I don't have a copy of that, so we'll have to be trawling through Discogs for that. Moving on from our Alphaville excursion, track 9 is Over and Over Again, which has a huge, expansive and atmospheric opening.
I've written clock-ish start.
Oh, right, okay.
I think it's like, is it not a clock or some ticking or something?
Oh, right, sorry.
Yeah,
I thought you meant the group clock for a minute.
No. And then we've got the layered beats with the line repeated over and over again. Weirdly, this song made me think of Killer by Adamski.
I can understand. It's that sort of atmospheric synth sound, because it starts with that and not with a beat. Most dance tracks, obviously longer ones, will start with a beat and build up from there. This starts with that swirling atmospheric synth lined on it, which I really quite like. I think the lyrics on this are rather more fleshed out than a lot of the others are. I quite like, there's a sort of quite odd bridge to chorus structure in the vocals that's quite interesting. Possibly feels like it's missing a hook somewhere, and I think it would have remixed into a fairly successful single. But that's what I have to say on that. Track 10 is No Gravity.
So I've written here, the start sounds like, I don't know whether it's animal cries or screaming machinery or angle grinders or something. And then we've got the electro pulses over a fast beat. And then that goes on for quite a long time. It's a long way into the song before the vocals come in. And that's kind of like chanted. And then there's a weird bit. It sounds like the DJ shouting at the end. Do you know what I mean?
I'm not sure I know exactly what you're on about, but
is it the stop singing and then there's like a shouted bit? It sounds like come on people, like but it's not that. I can't remember what it is because I didn't write it.
I think this feels like something where the vocals perhaps have been added after the rest of the song has been constructed. It's the words I used were perfectly great techno stormer. Which I think,
yes.
It has something of their single bonus tracks about it, with being a lengthy sort of symphonic bit of rave. Track 11, now I know this is the one you've been waiting for, was the first single from the album, which is Can You Hear Me Calling, which I think was a really odd choice for a first single.
Yeah, and also it feels a bit odd that it's this low down the order of the... Because usually people like to get their well-known tracks, or the tracks that are going to be the ones to look out for.
They like to front load.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't know whether this is on purpose that it's been left down so late, or whether that's on purpose.
The simple answer is I don't know. Right. I do wonder whether this was something that was completed earlier, and as a result was
available to... Was
said to Intercord, we're ready to go with this, have a couple of remixes and release this. Yeah. But I think the vocal section could have been a bit more developed on this.
Yeah. I did feel this felt like Don't You Want Me by Felix.
Yeah, yeah.
It's got that kind of feel.
It also has a callback to one of their previous tracks that they released on Zix. Yeah. Which was called Amok, A-M-O-K. And there are sounds of Amok in this song. Okay. Which you'd say, oh, this is a remix of that. But it's been developed quite a long way on from it. But there are sort of signature sounds from that through this song. So that's another thing that makes me think that it was done early and was available.
Okay.
Our lengthy dramatic outro is called Outro Active.
Yes. So this is basically an extension, or almost, of the intro active.
Yeah.
It was a bit weird because the second time I listened to this album all the way through, I don't want to say I misheard this, because you can't really mishear that it's 6 minutes long.
Yeah.
So I, for some reason, and I don't know why, maybe it was because my brain was elsewhere and I was just kind of listening to this ambiently.
Yeah.
I didn't quite get the beat. Mm-hmm. I kept missing where it was, which made it feel even more weird than it actually was. But it is kind of nice to have this ending coming from where it had done in the start.
Yes.
Kind of to see it off. Yeah. Almost.
It sort of it's a gentle farewell rather than a thumping finish to it.
Yes.
And I really like how it's an album that's willing to almost let you go gently. Yeah. Rather than say, stop.
This is like the come down track.
Yeah.
Yeah. At the Halloween rave.
Yeah. So I think that's just about taken us all the way through.
It has done.
So that wraps this album up.
Yes. Moving on.
I was going to say I hope you enjoyed it, but if you're ready to move on already.
No. It is not my usual fare.
No.
And it's not something I'm particularly knowledgeable about, but it's not something I would go and turn it off. It would, just something like that would be nice.
Yeah.
Ambient. I could imagine if I needed to get jobs done.
Yes.
It would kind of jolly me along.
Yeah. I think it's a really well put together example of the genre.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of very slapdash dance music albums that were put together just to fulfill a contract after a successful single. And I think there was a lot of effort and a lot of care went into this, which is why I think I feel some fair attachment to it.
Okay.
Right, where are we off to next?
Okay, so I basically changed my mind this morning again.
Oh. Am I allowed to know what the previous choice was going to be?
No, because we're going to have that at some point in the future. It's just not really. There's something like there's yeah. Anyway,
you do realise that if you make this too painful, my next album is going to be this album's bad brother, which there are a few examples of which I'm thinking of at the moment that this could be.
Right, so I'm going to choose a very different album to everything that we've had on this podcast so far. Unfortunately, this album it's not rare. However, it's not on Spotify.
Are you going elitist on me?
No, and it's not on. There's no album version on YouTube.
Right.
However, if you search for the individual songs, almost all of them are on YouTube.
You are making this sound complicated.
It is complicated, but it also isn't complicated.
Right. Before we go any further,
okay.
Do you have this album on CD?
I have it, yes.
Do you know where the CD is?
Absolutely.
Right, it's going on Venturi before the end of the day.
So, we're doing a covers album.
Oh, is it Joss Stone's The Arsehole Sessions?
No, I don't own that.
Good.
What do you take me for? Not only is this a covers album,
is it by Michael Ball?
No, it's
Alfie Boe?
No.
Russell Watson? No? Sorry.
Not only is this a covers album, but it's also a various artists covers album.
Oh, right, okay. Is it that album of covers of songs by the Smiths that made you hate this?
I think I hated Bis before then, to be honest.
Do you know what?
You're going to choose Candy Pop?
Oh, no. I'd go for Social Dancing if I was going to do any of them.
So, what I would like you to listen to is the 1998 album, A Song for Eurotrash.
Oh, God, that's Eurovision covers, isn't it?
It is Eurovision covers.
Oh, look, by St. Etienne and other...
St. Etienne, Kanicki.
Oh, good.
Shane McGowan.
Shane Ward.
No, not Shane Ward. Who else is on there?
Menswear?
No, not
The Long Pigs?
Well, it says on... it's got Terry Hall, Edwin Collins. That's a banger.
Right. What's Edwin Collins doing?
Ding-a-dong.
Right, okay.
Dubstar.
Oh, lovely.
Bananarama.
Bazoomaruma.
And 808 State.
Doing...
do 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 do. So it's, as I said, most of the songs, I'd say about 10 out of the 14 of them, are, if you do a search on Google for a song for Eurotrash playlist, you will find the playlist and you can look for most of the songs on there. There are also plenty of copies available online.
Okay.
At, Discogs and eBay and things like that. If you're absolutely desperate for a copy.
And QXL.
What's QXL?
Oh, do you not remember QXL was going to be the big new online buying and selling platform in, I think, about
Britannia.
1998. It's available from the Britannia Music Club.
Yeah. So I'd like it, and it's in that cupboard over there, the one that's open.
Oh, okay.
It's in there.
Can it be one of my 6 introductory CDs from the Britannia Music Club for just a penny?
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Right. So you're going to. It's very varied.
Okay.
And one of the reasons I've chosen this is because obviously it's Eurovision-y, but also some of these songs are shit.
Right. So you've decided what we need to do is have something that we can actually pile on a bit on about.
It is good to have stuff.
What's wrong with this podcast is there's too much fucking positivity going on. We need to have something that we can hate.
No, but I do think it's good to have a thing that this is a good album.
Yeah.
But there are some things that really don't work
for
various reasons.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Is it like any Now compilation from the mid-90s because it's full of drecky R&B songs?
Yeah.
Okay. Right.
Right. So, if you can try and find bits from a song for Eurotrash, or you've got that CD in your
that's not
catalogue.
likely, is it?
Well, if you're a Eurovision fan, you may well have come across this or ripped it off your friend and got it off of Napster.
Do you mean they might have it on a CDR they burned from LimeWire?
Yeah. I put it onto a mini disc.
Oh, I got it. Oh, I got it from Kazam, and only half the files had viruses on them.
Anyway.
Oh my word!
Right. So, if you want to get in touch, find us on Twitter at albumble, or find us on Blue Sky at our names.
Yeah. Find us on the notice board outside the newsagents offering to sell a skateboard for 20 quid.
Yeah, find us on the...
Find us in phone boxes all along the Finchley Road.
Yeah. With phone numbers that start 01.
Yeah.
Right. Should we stop?
Yeah, I think we ought to.
Right.
Sorry about this.
We'll see you in a couple of weeks' time with a song for Eurotrash. Au revoir.
Cheerio.